3, 2, 1.
To pursue science is not to disparage the things of the spirit. In fact, to pursue science rightly is to furnish the framework on which the spirit may rise.
Welcome to the Endless Frontiers, your home for all things science, fiction, and science fiction. I'm your host, Jed Morgan, and welcome into another Right or Flight podcast. These have been going great the last few months. I enjoy these quite a bit, and I just love hanging out with all you guys, talking about the stuff that I care about in both pop culture and science. Welcome in, everybody, whether or not you're watching on the YouTube side or the Kick side. I greatly appreciate it. I already see Legatus Legionus, the bot supreme, doing the Lord's work on both YouTube and Kick. I also see no likes given over in Kick. Great to have you here. And thank you to Adam the Renaissance Nerd for the raid just now from his daily dive stream. So if you're coming in from over there, welcome. Today's going to be a little bit shorter stream than most of the Writer flights, partially because there's not as much news as I expected. Of course, the Chat Choose Your Own Adventure segment at the end might balloon it to a more normal length, but unfortunately, there was a bit of an avalanche of personal life stuff that happened to me today that has me in a very distracted mindset. As many of you know, I lost my job a couple months ago, and stuff relating to that is starting to come to a head and become a lot more pressing of a problem. But we're gonna cycle through. That's none of your guys' problem, so I'm going to do my best to entertain you, and hopefully we have a great time. So how is everyone doing this Monday afternoon? I hope you're all doing very well. It seems like the cold front in the northern part of the United States has started to fade, so a lot more normal winter conditions for a lot of you. Hope you're all safe, happy, and healthy. We've got a good amount of people already watching just after the first few minutes. These streams, and just ever since the relaunch, we've been snowballing bigger and bigger as people start to find my channel. I realize that after the rebrand especially, the algorithm I'm going for is an unusual one. There are no other streamers that I'm aware of that try to balance between science and fiction the way that I am trying to do. And that's for a reason. The algorithm doesn't like recommending alternate things that are so vastly different. It confuses it. And that's very clearly shown in the clips that I make of Ride or Flight. When it's a pop culture clip, those clips do fairly well, or just in general, pop culture videos, Starfleet Academy videos do really well on my channel. But when I clip out something about, the baby black hole that I talked about last week, 13 people watched that video, so YouTube does not know what to do with me. Despite that, we're still growing, we're still finding like-minded people. And that's the most important thing to me. I know I'm never going to be, a few million sub channel or anything like that. but if I can just find a small group of people who care about the same things that I do, I will consider that a victory. Just hanging out with you guys, sharing knowledge with each other, correcting each other when we're wrong, and just thinking about the big questions of the universe, whether or not that's in the science side or the science fiction side. Hail Dash and welcome in from the YouTube side. Inter niche, yes, this is a niche on a niche already. So it's doing far better than I could have expected. I knew the rebrand, the way I was going about it, wasn't exactly the smartest thing I could have done, especially with, losing my job back in December and relying on this more than I had expected to when I was planning the rebrand. But it felt disingenuous to do anything else, and I wouldn't have the passion for anything else. As the people who have been sticking around since the Hollywood Scholar days know, I was losing interest in exclusively talking pop culture for years. Especially, there's so much negativity in the pop culture sphere right now, rightfully so. We've been given so much crap for so long that it's hard to find anything positive. So I stopped making videos, stopped streaming, and I practically took a 2-year hiatus. And it's only this infusion of passion that I have for science that is helping me rebuild this channel. And I'm so glad that I made these decisions because it let me meet a lot of you new viewers. Because there are a lot of people here, a lot of regulars like Sam, Judas Goat Barbecue, who just showed up, and Dash, who only really started coming in and watching these streams after the rebrand. So I don't regret the rebrand for a moment, even though I might not be a Juggernaut channel at any point in the future. But it's great to have you all here. Yes, the Adam Raid came in, Legatus. I hope you're all doing well after his streams. Those can get quite insane. I saw that he's being paid to review Sausage Party. I kind of feel bad for him watching that. He's not going to know what to expect, especially with, I believe is it Tobey Maguire's character or Ed Norton's character? I don't remember who playing him, but there's a Jewish piece of food, and that storyline is absolutely insane. Would you guys be interested in me setting up a chat made me watch it review similar to his? If you guys are interested in that, I am straight up a whore. I'm a whore for money, especially right now with everything going on. So if you guys want specific reviews, topics that I don't want to talk about, any Adam-like grifts or unique grifts, anything like that that you guys want from me, I'm here to service you guys and give you the entertainment that you want, however that looks. Weasel says, don't give up, Jed. You'll make it when you grow up. Yes, I do have some growing up to do. I just turned 26 a couple months ago, so I know I'm quite younger than a lot of people in the sphere and a lot younger than a lot of the people watching me. My generation is not one that I'm proud of or that I relate to, so a lot of them don't like me either. I've always tended to have friendships with older people anyway, but yeah, there's a lot of life ahead of me. A lot of life ahead of me, Weasley. You're absolutely correct. Well, I think we can jump into the first topic. I only have a couple for you guys today. I think I have 3, and none of them are going to be that in depth. They're not going to be huge discussions like the baby black hole one last week or anything like that. Just completely normal ones, short discussions. And I think that is probably better considering everything going on in my personal life right now. As a reminder, I am going to try to finish the Story Forge story this week. The Santa's Claus one that we did last night on Story Forge, which was so much fun. Gonna try to get it done this week, but with everything going on, it might be delayed another few days. I don't know exactly when I'm gonna get around to it. But luckily, I'm feeling better. Today, the sickness has really not hit me that hard. Maybe I've just been distracted by everything else going on, but I shouldn't have as many coughing fits or anything like that during this stream, so we should be absolutely fine. And with that, let's jump into the first topic, which is the obligatory one right now, an update on the situation with Artemis 2. After the second dress rehearsal seemingly went well, we were getting confirmation of an early March launch window for Artemis 2. Unfortunately, just a day or two after that confirmation, there was a new leak discovered in the SLS rocket, this time within the helium cryogenic upper stage. I don't know the exact location where it is, but the flow of helium has a leak in it. Before it was hydrogen. When it was delayed from the first dress rehearsal, it was a hydrogen leak, and you expect there to be problems with hydrogen. I mean, we've all heard of the Hindenburg, but helium, that stuff is supposed to make you go higher anyway. So it's disappointing to see helium is responsible for this, but it's actually so bad that they're going to be rolling back the SLS to the VAB, the Vehicle Assembly Building, to really do some intense repairs. This isn't a quick patch repair like they were able to do with the Hydrogen League. This is substantially delaying the rocket. They're still looking forward to an April release or an April launch, which is still within their initial launch windows. They had stuff from all the way from the beginning of February to the end of April. We're still within that, but this repeated cycle of wet dress rehearsal problem, wet dress rehearsal problem. If it happens again, we might see a substantial delay. And that's so disappointing after this launch has already been delayed by 3 or 4 years. It's getting a little ridiculous. NASA has, I think, mismanaged the entire Artemis program until recently. This last year, I've been so happy with the way that NASA's been handling things. Their administrator just went out and straight up told Boeing, we're not happy with how you're operating things after their disastrous spacecraft accidents of last year, and they're not willing to work with Boeing until those issues are fixed. So they have a spine now. They're a little bit more on schedule, so I'm willing to give them a little bit of the benefit of the doubt, a little bit of wiggle room with the issues with the Artemis 2's launch because of how well they've been doing recently. But if this continues, my goodwill will slap away, and I don't know if I'll be able to be as positive about Artemis 2 as I have been thus far. But I will keep an eye on this. Hopefully there aren't any weather problems in April, or we might see a substantial delay in this as well. So I'm not even confident April will happen at this point, but I will keep you all apprised of when Artemis 2 eventually does launch. I said I wasn't going to have any coughing problems, and then I immediately have a coughing problem. It's great timing. Rachel, yes, you lucky bastard, you're still sick. So yeah, I'm feeling better for the most part. She's really just starting to get into the rough patch of it. So I think she still has a bit of a journey ahead of her with that. It's not a great illness that we had. I'm guessing it's still the flu, but it's the worst flu I think I've ever had. Actual flu. Yeah, it's something else, maybe. I don't know. Dash's only NASA can turn a successful wet dress rehearsal into more bad news. That's true. Current NASA can absolutely turn a positive thing into a negative thing. And I was so excited when that second wet dress rehearsal went so well. They were positive about it. They're like, yeah, we've got March 1st. We're getting the astronauts into quarantine again, getting them ready to strap in. And everything was looking green for about 24 hours. And I was so excited. But they've been delayed again. So I keep delaying Apollo 13 on Saturday Night Drive-In because I wanted to align at least closely, and that's not going to happen. As Adam talked about on the Daily Dive, we're actually going to shelf Saturday Night Drive-In for the next few weeks until the release of Project Hail Mary, when we're going to talk about The Martian. I felt like that was apt, but with Starfleet Academy going on and the recorded editions of Saturday Night Drive-In just not moving the needle on either of our channels, it made more sense to put it on the shelf right now. So it's not a total loss that we haven't been able to do Apollo 13, because, you know, the video probably wouldn't have done very well in the recorded edition of Drive-In, but we'll get to it eventually. I really like Apollo 13 as a historical film, as a space film, and just, you know, the enduring human spirit of astronauts is on very strong display in that film. And it's very apt mission-wise. Apollo 13 didn't intend to just do a quick orbit of the moon and come right back, but that's what it ended up being, and that's what Artemis is. So Artemis is kind of a combination of Apollo 8 and Apollo 13, even though Apollo 13, again, it was accidentally in a similar mission category. So it felt like it made the most sense. Once we do Artemis 3 in a few years, unless that's delayed again, we'll probably find a little bit more apt moon landing movie. Maybe First Man with Ryan Gosling. I've never seen it, but it didn't look that good to me, and I don't know of any other Apollo 11 movies that were that good. So if any of you guys know of an Apollo 11 movie that's really good, I would love to watch it and bookmark it for Drive-In for when Artemis 3 actually physically returns to the moon itself and lands astronauts on the surface for the first time in, 60 years by that point? It's insane. Maybe not that long, but it's been a very, very long time, and I'm glad we're finally going back. Dash adds, new administration came into NASA with, what is this you do here? What is it you do here? Yeah, that is an important question to ask in every company these days, because there's so much bloat, and yet the job force, the unemployed force, there's, as someone who's currently unemployed, there are a ton of job openings that are fake, AI, or scam. So there's a ton of people looking for jobs in in an industry that's, or in a job field that's bloated. So it's just a mess on both sides of the job hunting coin, and it's utter chaos. From a job hunting perspective, I actually had a phone interview today that I'm practically certain was a scam. They were already asking for personal information and offering me the job after a 5-minute phone call. No in person, no Zoom call, no verification of skills. Just, hey, what's your name? All right. Do you have skills? Yes, I have skills. Great. Here's the job. Please send us your driver's license and blah, 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 blah. Yeah, that sounds like a scam. They weren't even listening to my qualifications. So it's a hard market to find a new job in, and it makes it so much worse when you find about so many people who, have jobs that don't deserve them, who aren't qualified for them. So it's just utterly chaos right now. Keep your jobs, people. Keep your jobs. Appreciate the job that you have. I definitely didn't appreciate my job as much as I should have. I should have seen a little bit into the future as well to see that, working for the company that I did prior, it didn't have a future in it. It was in a dying entertainment medium. It was a radio company. Radio is not exactly a popular medium anymore, especially when it's not music. It was talk show radio. No one listens to AM radio anymore, so I should have been prepared for that idea. Dash says, Fly Me to the Moon 2024, about Apollo 11 preparation with Channing Tatum and Scarlett Johansson. I thought Fly Me to the Moon was an alternate history, or there was something about the moon landings being fake. But if it's based in better history than I heard it is, I'll absolutely be interested in that, because I like those two actors. They're not top tier actors or anything, but when it comes to what modern actors have to offer, they're fine. But yeah, for some reason I heard that they were talking about the moon landings being fake. That's why I never checked it out. But if you're saying that it's legitimate history, I will absolutely check that out, because there are some great NASA focused movies that don't focus on astronauts, like Hidden Figures. Yes, there was the race element of it, but there was a lot of good history elements in it. So it is fiction. Okay. So I should still check out Fly Me to the Moon, but it probably won't be one that I attach to Artemis 3. Dr. Rachel says there are way too many job scams out there. Yeah, that's why I'm skeptical of third-party sites. I prefer to apply directly from the site whenever possible. Yeah, going directly to a company's site is a much better option. All the scams are on places like LinkedIn and Indeed and stuff like that, so they can get away with scams a lot easier just posing as a company rather than, having to pose as the company's website. That's a lot harder than posting a fake job on Indeed or something. Rachel says, a talk show radio company that is horribly stupid and hypocritical. The values they preach are not the ones they practice. Yeah, there was some hypocrisy there. They publicly preached against taking jobs out of America, going overseas, H-1B visas, all that type of stuff. And then they liquidated the IT department where I worked and hired overseas IT people who have no skills whatsoever, who didn't speak English. So yeah, that is entirely hypocritical of them. And some people have suggested a lawsuit against them for those decisions. So yeah, I should have seen it coming, though. I should have absolutely seen it coming and prepared better. But we can talk about more interesting things here today. Let's dive into a pop culture topic, because I do have one of those today. There are a lot less pop culture topics that I talk about on the Ride or Fly podcast, but I do try to slip them in when I can. And we have one that fits perfectly in with what I love and what I talk about. We're going to be talking about Doctor Who. Unfortunately, it's about the new crap. And Dash said, the Dish Australian comedy about the Parkes Observatory team tracking and relaying the Apollo moonwalk broadcast to the world. Ooh, I will definitely need to check that one out, because a lot of people don't realize that the world was tracking Apollo 11. That the moon landing faker, the people who believe the moon landings were fake. Oh, like, yeah, NASA lied to us. Those broadcasts were fake. And the best counter to that they always plug their ears for is, the rest of the world space agencies were monitoring the whole thing as well. Like the Russians monitor the actual spacecraft to the moon as well and corroborated it. They had every reason to say that the moon landings were fake, either to lie and try to discredit the United States, or if the United States was actually not doing it, they would have had proof to discredit the United States Apollo 11 mission. But they didn't. That's the best evidence for the moon landings being real that I could possibly come up with. But every time I've told that to a moon landing denier, like I did on Bro Science once a couple months ago, I was met with blank stares and immediately a change in subject, or a change in argument. So that comedy definitely sounds like something that would be interesting. A very, very funny one. Rachel, somebody needs to reach out to Elon Musk to hire Jed. Thank you, babe. Thank you. But let's talk about something else real quick. Let's talk about Doctor Who. Doctor Who boss Russell T Davies has written multiple versions of the 2026 Christmas special amid show's unknown future. So this comes from I believe it's a technical artist who works on Doctor Who, confirming that there are multiple versions of this Christmas special. When Billie Piper was initially introduced as whatever she is at the end of Shooty-Gatwa's final episode, there were so many questions being asked. Who is she? Is she actually the Doctor? Did Shooty regenerate into Billie? Was there some sort of person switching? There were so many questions to be asked, and we have no idea what the truth is. From the behind-the-scenes information and from the terrible CGI from that scene, it definitely feels like our theories at the time were true, that it was a last-minute addition to the episode. Shooty wasn't going to regenerate initially. He even confirmed that he was getting ready to film season 3 at one point on the Graham Norton show. So I believe that Disney was getting ready to pull out of the deal, which they subsequently did. So Russell T Davies quickly shoved an ending onto that last episode and had Shooty regenerate, called in a favor with Billie Piper, and hoped that her appearance would be enough to generate buzz for the show to potentially get Disney to reinvest, or at least get enough fan interest in the future of Doctor Who that the BBC would be able to renew it and continue it on their own. Those theories seem to be 100% true in the subsequent year, and this multiple version stuff, I think, corroborates that as well, because he had no idea what he was doing when he cast Billie Piper as whoever she is in that moment. And I think he's playing his cards close to the vest, having these different versions as a way to find out what the future is going to be. I doubt they'll film multiple versions unless it's, a final scene or something like that. Individual scenes might have multiple versions, but if there's multiple versions of the script right now, I think he has those in his back pocket in case the BBC doesn't renew, and he's not continuing with the show regardless, is what we hear right now is that he's done with Doctor Who after this Christmas special. But maybe there's a version where he continues on with it. There's just so much uncertainty with the show's future that I feel like these multiple versions are in case one or another thing happens. There's actually a rumor going around right now that's so unsubstantiated that I wouldn't make a video about it or anything like that, that the BBC is considering a full reboot of Doctor Who, starting from scratch, going back to season 1, first Doctor, new character, starting from complete scratch. Nothing that's come before would be canon. I think that would be an absolute disaster. You probably could have gotten away with it in 2005, considering the little bit of a wane off that happened near the end of classic Doctor Who. You still had 26 seasons of classic Doctor Who, and then you took 20 years off. I think some people would have been able to buy a reboot, as long as it was good, of course. That is the end all and be all of reboots. But you could have bought into it then. But right now, with how damaged the brand is from the Chris Chibnall and the Russell T Davies 2 era, there's not interest in the show continuing, let alone rebooting, and it's far too recent to have this discussion whatsoever. and they'll just take this opportunity to destroy the canon and change things that they've actively been trying to get rid of, like with the Timeless Children, which tore up the entire lore of the franchise. That is possibly the worst decision the BBC could make. Right now, the best decision that they could make is to shelve it. Give it 10, 20 years and just let it sit and see where the world is in a few years. That's what they need to do. Rebooting is the worst possible thing that they could do. And this multiple version stuff doesn't counteract that rumor. I believe that they are considering it legitimately. I think that a lot of these leaks, like the multiple versions, like the potential reboot, are leaks on purpose because the BBC and Russell T Davies do not know what the future of Doctor Who is, and they want to test out fan reactions to the different potentials. They're going to make the worst decision possible, though, because that's what they've proven time and again with Doctor Who over the last 10 years, is that they will always make the worst decision possible. So I fully expect reboot confirmation in the next 3 years, because that is the worst decision that they could possibly make. The multiple versions thing, I don't know which version we'll see ultimately in December. I don't even know if it's going to actually happen because they haven't started filming it yet, and it's already March. If this were 2013 and they hadn't started filming it, that would be fine. They had quick turnaround back then, but they can't even get back-to-back year seasons anymore. And it's such a crazy juggernaut to get into production in any television show right now, not just with the BBC, that I'm a little bit worried about this Christmas special happening, period. But if it does, it's probably going to be a mess. Russell T Davies has been writing convoluted, nonsensical plots for years with Doctor Who now, the last few years. If he's writing multiple versions, they probably don't make sense. So this might be one of the most nonsensical episodes of Doctor Who ever. And that is really saying something. What do you guys think? Do you think that the show will move forward with the BBC? Do you think Russell T Davies will come back again and continue this new era? Or do you think it's going to be rebooted, put on the shelf? Is Billie Piper the 16th Doctor? Is she someone new? What the hell is going on? Any theory goes at this point with Doctor Who. Judah says no. That's my sentiment as well. Rebooting is a horrible, horrible decision at this point. I can't imagine anything worse, really, because they've done so much damage to the lore at this point between the Timeless Children, by regeneration, everything from the last 10 years, that I don't think there's much more damage they could do by continuing on the current era. They just, everyone will forget, apathy will get worse than it already is, and it'll just fade into such obscurity that it'll eventually get canceled. Rebooting is worse than that, though. The damage is done. You need time away. You need Wilderness Years Part 2, and you need someone to come in and be brave enough to say, we're retconning everything after Peter Capaldi, or there's debate on where the retconning point should be. Some people say the 50th anniversary. Some people say after Peter Capaldi. I think Peter Capaldi is the easiest one. Just refilm his regeneration scene, get a little bit of extra footage there at the end of Twice Upon a Time, and we can work with that. Yes, there are issues with the Peter Capaldi era, but there were still great episodes mixed in, and they didn't counteract the lore. That's the biggest thing, is even the bad episodes of Peter Capaldi's Doctor Who, they still fit well enough within the canon that they don't need to be retconned to move forward. So I think that's just the easiest place, even with, all the issues of his era. Twice Upon a Time, change the ending, move forward after 20 years. But, the BBC is not that smart. And Sony owns Bad Wolf Productions, which is Russell T Davies, which has the production rights right now. So I know he's no longer involved as the showrunner, but we haven't got confirmation that the production rights are moving from Bad Wolf back to the BBC. There's no confirmation of anything in the future. It's just up in the air at this point, which is so sad because Doctor Who is probably my favorite franchise. The older I get, the more Star Trek kind of ekes out over it, but I know the most about Doctor Who. That's the closest to encyclopedic knowledge I have, especially New Who. But I want good Doctor Who. I love Doctor Who. It's probably time I get ready for a rewatch once I finish Star Trek, which is a massive undertaking that I'm going through right now. Dash says Doctor Who needs a divorce from the BBC. At this point, yeah, the BBC has mismanaged it for so long. When you repeatedly fail to do your job right, you shouldn't have that job anymore. But certain people, certain companies are protected. They're taxpayer funded, so they got nothing to worry about, unfortunately. I don't know. I don't believe the government should be in charge of pop culture at all. So I'm not a huge fan of the BBC being owned by the British government, period. So I don't think the BBC should be anything other than a broadcast service, which I think is fine, but should still be divorced from the government. Whatever the situation is, though, the BBC no longer should have the rights. They've lost the right to have the rights, in my opinion. Doctor used to be so good, though. I can still turn on, luckily, some good Matt Smith, David Tennant, or, classic Who. John Pertwee's a favorite of mine, but Tom Baker, of course, and William Hartnell, absolutely phenomenal. I can still turn on one of those episodes and feel re-immersed into the world and forget about the current crap. Luckily, I'm able to do that. I wasn't always at the end of the Jodie Whittaker era. I was starting to get apathetic to the point where I couldn't even do that. But now I think I've reclaimed that ability, and I can just end it, pause it while Peter Capaldi's regenerating, and just say he regenerated into the curator from the 50th anniversary and retired. That's fine. I'm happy with that ending. It's good enough. It closes enough of the loose threads, and I can move forward from there. But it sounds like a couple of you guys are Doctor Who fans as well, like Judas and Dash. Definitely seems like you guys are familiar with Doctor Who. Judas says the worst thing is you have to pay a fee every year to own a TV in the UK. Yeah, the what is it? The broadcast license? I don't remember what it's called. Is it just TV license? Whatever it is in the UK is bizarre, and I would consider that criminal. Obviously, it's legal there, but I think that is morally wrong, requiring you to pay for a TV license. At least they don't verify it, because you can use a VPN, tell BBC's iPlayer that you have a license, and you can watch whatever the BBC has on there. So at least they don't ask for IDs or anything, but it's taxable. What's the term for it? It's taxation for entertainment. Forced taxation for entertainment. The government should not have the right to do that. There's no way the government should force you to pay for entertainment. Yes, for government services, sure, you can have the argument for stuff like that, but for entertainment? Yeah, Dash, the propaganda will be watched. It definitely feels that way. Absolutely. It's crazy to think about that the Revolutionary War started because I think it was a 1.5% tax on tea. Like, it was some minuscule tax on tea. And of course, there were other things. That was just the linchpin issue that helped unite people. There were plenty other taxation issues and abuses of power that the British government was enacting over the 13 colonies at the time. And that's just, the easy one to talk to. But that issue was enough to unite a lot of the colonies against the British Empire. That's nothing compared to what the British people are paying right now, what the American people are paying to the American government right now. If I go down this path, I'm going to get way too political, and I'd rather not on this stream. But I, of course, have strong opinions on all of this. So, to change the subject before I take things too far, let's talk about the next topic for this stream. The 3IA Atlas comet that had people freaking out a few months ago. Several months ago, we got word of an interstellar object that had moved into our solar system and was going to pass the sun before heading back out into interstellar space. This object was called 3IA Atlas, and conspiracy theorists and people just having fun theorizing immediately leapt on the possibility that it was an alien spacecraft or any other fun explanation like that. Of course, every piece of information that we got about 3IA Atlas disproved that. It was eventually proven to be a comet, and I still love 3IA Atlas because it's an interstellar object. This is only the third interstellar object that we've recorded, hence the 3IA portion of its name. There's so many great things to study about it, so many things to glean from its orbit. Based on what we know about it, it came from so far across the galaxy that its chemical makeup could have a map of the galaxy that we can't possibly have in any other way. So the idea presented in this article from space.com about a risky maneuver to send a spacecraft to this comet is a fascinating one. In a perfect world, I would love to have been able to get this mission up and running last year so that we wouldn't have to wait. 3IA Atlas made its closest pass to Earth in a November-December timeframe, and that was on the opposite side of the sun at 1.5 AUs away from Earth. 1 AU is the distance between the Earth and the sun on average. So it was far away from Earth on the opposite side of the sun at its closest approach, clearly disproving the whole alien spacecraft visiting Earth conspiracy theory. But if we had launched it in time, maybe we could have gotten there in the next few years. Unfortunately, it's already on its way out of the solar system, and it requires a risky maneuver to go after it. I think one of the reasons that this maneuver is being suggested is because not enough people were willing to accept that it wasn't an alien spacecraft. That was dampening my excitement about an interstellar object. So many people were obsessed with the idea that it was an alien spacecraft. They were dismissing the Mars satellite footage. They were dismissing the comet trail. They were dismissing the chemical makeup that we were able to get from it. They were dismissing the tail that was clearly visible. And when people refuse to accept clear evidence, it bothers me. It bothers me a lot. So that dampened my excitement for it. And I hope that this mission wasn't being suggested just to disprove them, because we don't need to. Most people can look at the evidence and say, yeah, it's a comet. A really cool comet, a fascinating one that I'd love to have studied, but a comet nonetheless. This risky maneuver is fascinating. At this point, it's just in the theorization stage. This mission is not going to happen. I don't believe it's going to happen in my opinion, and there's no one offering to fund this mission or anything like that. So we're not talking about a real mission to 3IA Atlas, but the scientists have come up with the framework to catch up to 3IA Atlas, including a slingshot around the sun, dipping to the coronosphere to build up enough speed to catch up with 3IA Atlas. That's the dangerous maneuver part of it. We need to be doing this just in general to get out beyond our solar system. The farthest man-made object from Earth is Voyager 1, which is about, I think right now it's 170 AUs from Earth, which is ridiculously far. It's moved past Pluto, the farthest planet out from the sun, and it's getting toward the Kuiper Belt and the Oort cloud, and it's going to take forever to get through there because the Oort cloud expands about a light year past the sun, if not further. So it's kind of stuck on its trajectory and won't find a lot of interesting stuff for the foreseeable future. And we're struggling to maintain contact with it. Voyager 1 has kind of reached its end beyond the, hey, how far can it go? And we keep contact with it, this man-made object far out there. We need to consider new probes going out into deep space, and how do we get that done? Well, this risky maneuver, divorced from the 3I Atlas portion of it, could work. The math, the theory, everything like that is entirely sound. You'd need great heat shielding to do a slingshot in the coronosphere, but the scientists prove that it is possible. So I would love to see this probe type launched, period, just to get out beyond our solar system a little bit quicker than Voyager 1. To visit IA Atlas would be great because it is a map of our galaxy, because of how far away it was formed in a solar system unbelievably far from ours. It could contain compositions that we can't even theorize at this point. I would love to see it, but it just doesn't make sense funding wise because they have to launch it so soon, and it will take, by their calculations, a ridiculous amount of time to get there. If launched in 2035, a spacecraft performing such a maneuver around the sun could fly by 3IA Atlas by 2085. And with that, it won't be able to slow down, most likely, to actually land on 3IA Atlas. So this would only be a flyby. So this mission is never going to happen. but at least it's great theory for how to send more deep space probes like the Voyager programs, Voyager 1 and Voyager 2. No one's going to care about 3i Atlas in 2085. It's going to be beyond our solar system, heading into many, many others, and won't be relevant anymore. It's still great that we're pursuing the science, that scientists are able to have these discussions. And I doubt, however, that if we were to do this, if we somehow managed to land the spacecraft on 3i Atlas in 3 years, it's completely impossible. But let's say in the next 3 years, we landed a probe on 3i Atlas. The people who think it's an alien spacecraft will not be convinced otherwise. These people were certain that it was heading directly for Earth and would either be an apocalyptic scenario or be an alien spacecraft. Even when it was clear its path, its trajectory would take it on the opposite side of the sun at 1.5 AUs away from us, they still were doggedly determined to call it an alien spacecraft. So landing on it wouldn't change their minds in any way, shape, or form. So this mission should not be pursued to convince them otherwise. There's still such great scientific value from this theory, and I would love to see it pursued farther. Dash says it's a miracle that Voyager is still alive. It's absolutely a miracle. They've lost contact with it a couple times over the last few years, and it's still going somehow. It's a miracle. It's the little engine that could. Voyager 1 and Voyager 2, I think, are some of the best things humanity's ever created, and one of the best stories that we can tell, because we were able to make these devices that were able to go that far out in our solar system. That is an achievement that nobody talks about. There's so few people that I meet who even know what the Voyager programs were, let alone how far away from Earth it is, or care. Even after I tell them, hey, there's a man-made object leaving the solar system right now. I mean, it's going to take a long time depending on what the divide of the solar system is, whether or not that's the Kuiper Belt or the Oort Cloud or whatever, but still, it's really cool. They're just like, yeah, cool. There's such disinterest in the general public of space, and it depresses me. Honestly, it makes me very sad that so few people can look past what's directly in front of them. And of course, that should be the top priority. Making sure you're safe and accounted for and your life is on track is absolutely should be your top priority. But in the past, humanity had this great view of the future, not in just theorizing about science fiction futures or anything like that, but individual people had the ability to look beyond their own lives to the future of humanity. Just look at cathedrals. We were building buildings and these beautiful structures that took hundreds of years in some cases to build. Generations of families worked on the same structure, eventually completing it, and they're still standing today. Those people who started those projects knew they would never see the end of it, that their grandkids might never see the end of these projects, and yet they embarked on them anyway because they were able to look past their own lives and see humanity as a whole, see the progress that could be made. I think that perspective is nearly entirely lost. Divorcing it from space travel, people not willing to look out into space, but just looking at 20 years in the future, let alone to grandchildren's future, in any way, shape, or form, is gone. Some people might pay lip service to it, especially the climate activists, the people who are freaking out about the climate. They talk about seeing into the future that far, but when you get down to it, I don't believe they actually do. Humanity needs to progress. Our science needs to progress. Our technology needs to progress. But there's a lot of egotism, narcissism, and just the self is the whole to these people that none of it's possible for them. Our future is in space. I fully believe that. I adhere to Elon Musk's philosophy that we must become an interplanetary species to become immortal. Humanity will only survive if we become interplanetary, and eventually, hopefully, if we can figure out how to cross those distances well, interstellar. I see, the future spread out for generations before me, and I think a lot of you do in the chat as well. But that is a rare perspective these days that I can't argue someone into feeling. These people I talk about with Voyager 1 and 2, I can't force them into having perspective like that. I can't force them into seeing things the way I do. You can argue facts, you can argue someone to change an opinion, but I think it's incredibly difficult to argue someone into a new perspective. And that's what we need is a perspective shift in our society on an individual and a societal level. There's there's this feeling of imminent doom that people walk with every day, so they're not able to even imagine a future. They're so depressed. They think that, that they're going to die young and everything like that, and it's not their fault necessarily. Like we talk about with the media at the BBC, so much of modern media is dire gloom and destruction because that's what looks good, that's what gets the ratings up. Clickbait for news, and that just depresses the public and makes people have these perspectives of, I must keep my eyes on the ground, I must worry about the next day, the next step. So I don't blame anyone who doesn't have this perspective beyond their lives. It's been conditioned into them, but it's a false perception of their condition, in my opinion. I don't believe we actually live in a world on the brink of annihilation. Yes, wars could absolutely happen, and we need to be careful about that. But having that view of the future, shifting that perspective into a generational perspective like we used to have with these cathedrals, I think that is an excellent example for how we used to have generational perspective. But if we did that, I think a lot of these wars wouldn't be as close to happening. The hair trigger in geopolitics wouldn't be as sensitive. But I think I've romanticized my perspective enough for the time being. I can get overly dramatic when it comes to stuff like that, and I try to see the world optimistically. I really do. Despite how negative I am about a lot of things, I try to take an optimistic overall view, and that can make me wax poetic. And I hope that doesn't turn anyone off from watching the fact that I just gave a 10-minute speech about generational perspective. Dash says the computers are basically built from bits you can find at Radio Shack when Radio Shack still existed. Yeah, the Voyager isn't some complex piece of machinery. It's miraculously mundane. Judah says, in the present time, we have a cathedral like that. Cathedral of St. John the Divine in New York City was begun in 1892, and it's still only 2/3 done. Really? Oh, I'm so glad to hear that there are still projects like that. Is it at least still beautiful? Because a lot of modern buildings are so sterile. Modernism, I think, is the death of creativity and partially the death of that generational perspective. Architecture these days is so soulless that there's no point in looking at a generational perspective. They shouldn't exist beyond a single generation, a lot of these sterile buildings, but I'm glad to hear that there are still, at least our architectural projects is only a small facet of a generational perspective, but it's an important one. So I appreciate you letting me know about that, Judas. That makes me feel a lot better about the state of the world. Legata says, I used to enjoy the free monthly battery you could get from Radio Shack. Really? They used to give out free batteries once a month at Radio Shack? That's a great idea. Dash, take a whiff of Elon's Musk. We all ascend through Elon's trust. Getting musical on me, man. I like it. I like it. Judah says, I grew up when the Cold War was on and a huge threat to us, but the news tried to play it off, not scare us all to death. And that's a better way of putting it, in my opinion. Like, you should still be educated on everything going on, positively and negatively. So, like in the Cold War, you shouldn't hide that the Cold War is going on, but putting a positive spin on it helps people help people move forward. And I don't think media these days is willing to do that. Every story is twisted in some negative way. It's creating tribalism, and that happens politically and non-politically in the media, where you have to take sides in everything. You have to be depressed. There's an occasional fluff piece that's like, oh yeah, puppies, yay, but that's not enough to create this generational perspective. I think that's the term that I think properly encapsulates what I'm trying to say here. This view that humanity will exist generations from you, and that planning for those future generations is a noble endeavor. So I'm calling that generational perspective. There might be a better term for it. Rachel says modern architecture and art is abstract, lopsided, and sterile. Yes, I despise it. I absolutely despise modern art and modern architecture. Weasel, I would love to see some progress on the Artemis program more than anything else cosmic going on right now. The Artemis program is very important, just like everything Elon Musk is doing with Mars to progress us into being interplanetary. Because Artemis is trying to get us into moon bases, which is an incredible and important first step, which is why I'm glad Elon is kind of changing his Mars first track to align with Artemis's, because moon bases are an important next step. It's a lot easier to train, prepare, and test for these habitats that exist in extreme conditions like the moon and like Mars when it's close enough that we could, help them. The moon is so much more close to render aid in a crisis, to move supplies up there, everything like that. So a moon base makes a lot of sense to me over a Mars base. So just like you're saying, Weasel, I want to see some progress in the Artemis mission. I want to get us through Artemis 3 into the moon base portions of it, and that will be the most important first step into being interplanetary and immortal as a species. I'm hoping that once space travel becomes a little bit more normal, that generational perspective can return. Because if you talk to any astronaut or hear any astronaut talk about being in space, it's a paradigm shift in your mind. There are very few people who have ever gone to space that don't feel forever changed. How could you go up into space and see the Earth from that distance, all of humanity's problems condensed into a single pale blue dot, and not think about the grander scale of things, universal scales, generational scales? And I think it makes them better people seeing the Earth like that. So I hope once, it's going to start out commercial. It's going to start out moon hotels, satellite hotels, stuff like that. So it's going to be the rich and powerful paying for it, of course, and it's going to be rare at first, which I think makes sense because that helps pay for the way to make it cheaper, as long as they actually push towards that. And I think Elon is. But that perspective, I hope seeing the world like that will change people's perspective and reintroduce a more widespread generational perspective. I can't imagine talking to someone who, goes up into space as an astronaut and goes, yeah, it wasn't that cool. Yeah, it wasn't that interesting. Yeah, whatever. Just shrugging the way that some people do seeing nature. There are plenty of people who go from big city out to nature and don't feel any different, whereas they should. So there will, as much as I think it's going to be rare, there will be people who completely dismiss the perspective of space. But it's so alien, so different that I think it'll break through to most people. Judas, yes, the cathedral is very beautiful, great. The style is neo-Gothic and Byzantine Roman-esque. I'm going to have to look that up. I'm so happy to hear that that's still happening. And 1892 is a long time ago. So the fact that this project is still going, it made its way through the Great Depression and everything like that. I'm glad to hear that that's happening. And it's still got a lot of time left. Like you said, 2/3 of it is done currently. We need more projects like that. If nothing else, it's these buildings, they might not be incredibly useful. Cathedrals are not cathedrals or anything like that. They might not be incredibly useful in a practical purpose, but they help give us that generational perspective. And I think projects like that make better societies, even if those buildings aren't that important. Legatus, most likely the commie mayor of New York City will force it converted to another. Oh yeah. Dash, naming the architecture of a certain president's new library is not allowed. I'm not sure what you're referring to. Naming the architecture of a certain. Oh, you're talking about, Obama's library. That building looks terrible, and I think it never even got finished. I don't know the details of it, but I'm pretty sure that's what you're talking about, Dash. Yeah, at least, you know what? I'm not going to dive into Trump stuff there, but yeah, architecture, it matters. Seeing beautiful things gives you a better perspective. I mean, you hear it all the time with cubicle workers, that environment of no windows, closed in cubicles, beige as the primary color, it depresses them. But if you give them the same work in a more beautiful environment, that's not too distracting, of course, or let them go home or something like that, they might do the same amount of work, but have so much more job satisfaction and life satisfaction that, you know, these buildings, they need to be beautiful for the state of our society. Beautifulness inspires greatness, it inspires happiness, and modernism is killing all of that and causing this lack of generational perspective. Whoops, Jed is going to be demonetized now. I think I caught myself in time. I don't want to dive into politics too much on this channel, because it's not what this channel is about. It is not what this channel is about. I'm not trying to give anyone political recommendations or anything like that. But those are the end of my topics for the day, actually. Those were the only ones that I had, and we still made it to an hour with those topics. So I think it is time for the chat choose your own adventure segment of this stream, where you, the chat, with a combination of super chats and dice rolls, help me craft fun little short stories that may end up going on to be written and given to the members on the YouTube side. We've done it every week for the last 2 months now, I believe, maybe even 2.5 months, and it's an incredible amount of fun. So let's dive into that right after a word from our sponsor, Plotter. This video is sponsored by Plotter. Every writer knows the drill. Staring at a blank page, characters ghosting you mid-plot, timelines unraveling like a bad sweater. That endless loop of what happens next, sucking the joy out of your story. I lived it. Outlines and chaos, competing storylines driving me mad. For the longest time, my notes were thick, blocked out paragraphs, and my outlines were never-ending bullet points that stretched for more pages than my first drafts. Then I found Plotter, my plotting lifeline. Visual timelines that snap into place, drag and drop scenes to tame the wildest arcs, character sheets that keep everyone on track. It turned my latest novel, a 200,000 word juggernaut with multiple character perspectives and solar systems worth of lore, into an easy to understand, trackable project, complete with the series Bible, multi-track storylines, and lore documents that make world building a breeze. And check out their latest feature, a seamless note-taking system for all those story and character ideas that don't have a home yet. Available for free to all users of the Plotter app. For pro users, your notes and files will automatically sync across devices with cloud storage. If you're tired of the plot purgatory, use my link or scan the QR code to get Plotter for life with a single payment of $150. Your epic won't write itself, but with Plotter it'll flow like never before. Link in the description. Let Plotter help you conquer your stories. And we are back with another Chat Choose Your Own Adventure segment. During this initial dice rolling section, we'll pick out the genre, the lead character, the setting, everything like that. I will roll dice to pick one of the options, numbered options, but if you want to override any dice roll, the highest super chat starting at $1 can override any dice roll whatsoever. And then once we're actually into writing out, plotting out these short stories, the highest super chat starting at $5 can introduce a twist of any kind. Last week, in the middle of one of the craziest stories I've ever written as part of this segment, Biggles Metz introduced a dog girl to show up for no reason whatsoever with one of these twist super chats. So it can literally be anything under the sun, and I will have to endeavor to make it make sense, because that is the goal of this. These short stories aren't supposed to be just chaos incarnate and just nonsense. They're supposed to be fun, they're supposed to be silly, but they're supposed to still work as cohesive stories, because this is a writing exercise for me as much as anything else, and it is kind of fun to try to force the pieces together to make a cohesive story. So that is the goal, to make any twist still work in the context of the story, and that is my responsibility. That is the entertainment I try to offer to all of you, but who knows how it's going to work out every week. The Weasel says, some of the celebrities that went into space don't seem like they got better. I mean, you're not wrong. You're not wrong. And the weasel, it looks like this chat got censored on YouTube, but I'm able to see it. At least they got a champagne shower out of Bezos for their trouble. Wow. So for the chat choose your own adventure segment, we've got genre, which includes science fiction, fantasy, mystery thriller, romance, parody, chat choice. For lead character, we have bounty hunter, model, narcoleptic, seal trainer, pimp, and chat choice. For all these chat choice, these are free spaces where the chat can just come to a consensus to pick it out. They don't have to spend any money for that, but super chats can still override chat consensus on those ones. Settings, there is present day, past, future, non-human world, alternate universe, chat choice. We also have for theme and style, nihilism, which is the new one, hallmark, teen drama, bravery, corruption, and chat choice. And finally, wildcard items. These are just random things that I have to incorporate. We have toad, gold, unicorn, nachos, a robot, and chat choice. If the super chats and the revenue from the stream, which count from both Twitch subscriptions and YouTube super chats, memberships, anything on the YouTube side, as well as stream elements donations, if those equal into $100 for the stream, I will schedule a separate stream called The Story Forge, where I will start to write out this story, and my incredible wife who's in the chat right now, Dr. Rachel, will do some exclusive artwork for these short stories after we finish them up. The short story and the artwork will be available to all members of the YouTube channel. You'll be able to read them, do whatever you want with them, and enjoy the great artwork that she does. But for right now, let's start out the dice rolls. We have genre right now. What are we going to get? And I'm playing some music. If it's too loud or anything like that, please absolutely let me know. All right, what do we have? We have 4. We have a romance. It's been a little while since we had a romance story. Interesting. All right, and yeah, for lead character, we have bounty hunter, model. Bounty hunter's been there since the beginning. Narcoleptic, seal trainer, pimp, or chat choice. What do we have? We have 1. I swear the dice rollers, the dice system is listening to me. So we have a romance about a bounty hunter. For setting, we have present day, past, future, non-human world, alternate universe, and chat choice. We have 5, so it's an alternate universe, so it doesn't have to be like Earth at all. For theme and style, we have nihilism, hallmark, teen drama, bravery, corruption, and chat choice. Once again, if any of you are dissatisfied with these dice rolls, high super chat starting at $1 can override any of these, and it doesn't have to be one of the options presented. Super chats override even these options, and it can be anything you think of. All right. 4. So it's a story about a bounty hunter and a romance story in an alternate universe with a theme of bravery. The wildcard options are toad, gold, unicorn, nachos, robot, and chat choice. Let's see what we're getting ourselves into. 2. Gold. So, romance about a bounty hunter in an alternate universe with bravery as the theme and gold as the wild card item. Just gonna copy these over for the notes so that we can start writing out the outline while you guys think about overwriting any of those. Last week's story was wild, and this is way more traditional, so this might be the dice gods let me have a week off the craziness. Be like, all right, take something entirely normal, entirely mundane. Traditional. All right, alternate universe. Wonder what we're gonna do for alternate universe. It could be aliens. It could be alternate history. That's why I put alternate universe, is that it gives complete freedom. It could be alternate histories, alternate times, alternate dimensions, anything like that. Bravery. And then gold. Gold, gold. There we go here. Alright, and I'll move over to the timeline and pop out the story objectives. Romance about a bounty hunter in an alternate universe featuring bravery and gold. What's something we've been talking about that I can make a part of this? I'm kind of leaning towards alternate history, just picking some historical event, making it different, or, you know, cyberpunk or something like that. How are you guys feeling about this? Just general chat consensus? Any ideas in the chat to incorporate? There's some alternate history things I could do. I mean, the clear-cut one is, did World War II happen or not? Going Inglourious Bastards route. But I'd rather avoid something like that. Maybe the Roman Empire never fell. That's an interesting one. I always like theorizing about that. Or Greece conquered the world instead of Rome. Something like that. More ancient world changes. Dash, the gold rush never ended because a massive gold meteorite. Ooh, that's actually a great way to incorporate the gold. That's a great idea. We're going to go with that. So, the 49ers, it wasn't just the 49ers, it was perpetual. Where do we want to put this gold meteorite? The gold rush was primarily on the west coast, like Northern California, I believe. So we can put it in Northern California, but the meteorite could be pretty much anywhere on the west coast. I really like that. So the gold rush and just the amount of wealth that would be in the western United States as a result, I think would be enough to achieve independence. So what if, you know, the gold rush never ended and it made them so powerful that the United States, the 13 colonies, never did the Louisiana Purchase? I mean, that was prior to the gold rush, to be fair. Like 50 years or whatever before the gold rush. Maybe not that long. Maybe more like 20 or 30. 49, the Louisiana Purchase was under Thomas Jefferson, which would have been early 1800s. So yeah, less than 50 years difference between the two of them. But yeah, California be independent. That's really interesting. Jackknife over on YouTube. What if America was never discovered because of massive constant storms until the invention of aircraft? That is an interesting one as well. I think we can incorporate that somehow. I'm leaning towards the gold rush mainly because it incorporates the wildcard item, but having the delay of that gold rush could be interesting. We might be able to incorporate that the gold rush just takes place at a different time because aircraft were required to discover America, and then it became an isolated empire because of the storms. Even with aircraft, storms like that would prevent easy travel. So the gold rush would have been hard at first, and then it would have grown, and the nation would still be incredibly isolated. So an isolated California empire. That's really interesting. Then bounty hunter and romance. So I think we've got the alternate history down really well. I like combining those ideas. Jackknife. So the gold rush happened much later after the invention of airplanes, but it never ceased because of a giant gold meteorite in Northern California. So there's a isolated Californian empire. We got alternate history, gold. Now what's the romance aspect of it? The bounty hunter, he could be in love with some woman in Europe, and he's trying to get up enough money together to support her and ask for her hand in marriage, so he bravely takes on a dangerous bounty that would take him over the storm front into the Californian Empire as he tracks down this criminal in order to win over his potential fiance. How do we feel about that? I really like this world that we've created, but the other aspects of it are of course open. So I'm liking that. Bounty hunter who's doing odd jobs in Europe or, somewhere else in away from the Americas, has a girl that he's in love with but can't financially support her, so takes on dangerous bounty that takes him over the storm front into the Californian Empire. And, interacting with the golden meteorite in some way, of course. I think that includes everything. Your guys' suggestions made this from kind of a generic story to a fascinatingly original one. Those two suggestions are phenomenal. Absolutely phenomenal. So I'm going to go with that for right now, unless you guys have anything that you want to tweak. But I'm going to go with that it's a bounty hunter and bravely taking on this bounty in the service of love. This is turning into a full story. This idea is worthy of a whole novel, not just a short story, so I feel kind of bad. This is great. Alright, I'm gonna call this Odd Jobs. Bounty Hunter Tracks. Dash says the massive wealth of the Golden Empire means they can buy bounty hunters huge sums to influence the rest of the world. Oh, so you think it should go the other way around? That it's a bounty hunter from the Gold Empire going out of the storm front. Do we want to go that way, chat? Because I can see it going either way. And the romance element of it still is the same. It's just, does he start in the Gold Empire and go out into the poor rest of the world? Or does he start in the poorer rest of the world and goes into the Great Gold Empire? I really just want to make this a full book. I'm going to keep it a little bit ambiguous during this odd job section as you guys think about this, but I think it could go either way. It'd be really, really good. Tracks down a bounty. Judas, I think the isolationist aspect is good because they would have to keep the gold in the Empire. If you let too much of it out, it can cause a drop in the worth of gold. Absolutely. Absolutely. Dash to kidnap a princess or something. Alright, so the Great Gold Empire would hire him to kidnap a princess from Europe or something, and that be the romance element of it? A bounty hunter tracks down a bounty. Low level crook. Bail dodger. I don't think that's the official term for it, but it's close enough. Bail dodger. I think this is the first time where I felt like we had a legitimate story. I mean, the other ones from all the other Chat Choose Your Own Adventures have been a lot of fun, exciting, but not a whole lot about B movies because of how ridiculous they are, but I feel like this one could turn into something real. Bail dodger. A small action scene as he captures the bounty. Just kind of establishing the character, what he does, and everything like that at this beginning portion. We'll go with turn in. Takes. The big thing that I need, chat, is agreeing on whether or not he's from outside the Great Gold Empire going into it, or vice versa. Because I think it can work either way. We just need to commit. Take bounty to police station. Paid. The isolationist aspect also hurts them from trade, because the big thing about gold is trade. So airplanes, it helps them not being permanent isolationists or complete isolationists. It just depends on when this is taking place to see if there's enough of a plane technology to facilitate. So I'd say we'll have this take place in modern day. We'll say that this is modern day so that planes have evolved enough that they still have stable trade with the Gold Empire. How we feeling, chat? Are we feeling European or Californian for the bounty hunter? Is he going into the Great Gold Empire, or is he leaving the Great Gold Empire? With the romance angle of it, I personally like him going into it more, because it's, you know, discovering this new world is a big aspect of the story in that case. Dash could be either way. Bounty hunters have no loyalty to anything but gold. From outside makes more sense. Those within the Gold Empire are too rich to become the bounty hunters. Perfect. All right, great. We'll go with that. Go with a grab and normal looking. We'll put him in London. I'll actually put that in the previous one. There we go. Barely enough to cover expenses. Annoyed. Walks past bulletin board with new bounties. Rival Gold Empire nobility hires outside bounty hunter to kidnap crown princess or something. So it's being hired from within for within. We could definitely go with that. So he doesn't meet his lady love yet. And he could fall in love with the princess. That's a lot more traditional. We could go with something like that. A rich bounty beyond the storm wall. High life insurance option for relatives if you die going through the front. The Weasel says, could go noir if you made him, not me, him from outside trying to navigate the aristocracy and their decadent lifestyles while also investigating the gritty and cruel reality of what props up their society. Yeah, I like it being from outside, absolutely. We could go noir a little bit with it. Go through the front. The Weasel's a bounty hunter confirmed. Alright, other bounty hunters hesitant. Maybe not worth the risk. And the Gold Empire doesn't have a hot the Gold Empire has a high mortality rate for outsiders. The politics are complex and dangerous. I'm gonna have him ignore the call, classic hero's journey style. Here. Bounty hunter decides against the contract, takes the info for another small one, goes home. All right. I'm just gonna call this whore. Decides to skip dinner to save money. Stares at ceiling. No one greets him. I'm gonna add in here. No info on what the job is. Hatred bubbles. He is too good to live like this. He should take what he wants. Due to sense its bounty, then usually there's some legal issue. Maybe if the princess was promised to wed a Gold Empire prince and the princess's country reneged on the deal, so he is hired to get her. Well, would that be rival factions? And the romance, I don't love cliche romance. It's the one reason I'm struggling a little bit with him falling in love with the princess. But if the romance element is, you know, kind of a little bit more, I guess it is cliche still, Romeo and Juliet, where she's in love with somebody else, or she's in love with the prince maybe, but finding some way where she's in love with somebody else, and that's what the story is about, is getting, like, the bounty hunter changes his mind and helps her get with her lover. I like going that way a little bit more. He's owed. Goes back to police station and takes contract. High altitude transport, like a C-130. Bumpy ride and oxygen mask. Can't even spell bumpy. Oxygen mask. Bounty hunter is riding in the cargo hold, wrapped in tightly. The flight from London, the London to, I'm gonna butcher Reykjavik. I'm just gonna put Iceland, but I mean Reykjavik. Iceland was easy, but this flight is insane. Dash, bounty hunter is hired by true love to extract her from an arranged political marriage. I don't like the bounty hunter being the one in love, though. Like this, like he falls in love, or he has a previous relationship like that. I either like that he's taking this job to win over his fiance who's staying behind in Europe, or he's facilitating someone else's romance. That's kind of what I'm leaning towards. He sees out a window a storm front that seems to demark the ocean in twain. Understands why ancient people thought it was the edge of the world. Oh, her true love hired in Brandana. Perfect. Okay. Yes, absolutely. That sounds great, Dash. Jack, what if the love interest is another bounty hunter trying to accomplish the same mission for another buyer? Could be a little bit more Mr. and Mrs. Smith, kind of a little bit there, where he falls in love with someone trying to do the same thing. That's more unique, absolutely. I want something to go wrong here, just so we know how hard it is to get through this storm front. Trying to fly over the storm, but it's but the air is dangerously thin this high. We'll do crashing, turbulence. I don't want him to actually crash. That would be a little too cliche. So turbulence, nose dive, crawls his way down the plane to the cockpit. Pilot is injured and unconscious. Bounty hunter does his best to pilot, takes radio, and is walked through setting up the autopilot. Radio signal weak. They can't fly it for him, and the autopilot won't last long. There are too many reflexes. There are too many quick reactions needed in this type of flight. What can he do here? What can he do here? He could try to wake up the pilot, just keep it going long enough. From crashing long enough, render pilot medical aid. He left hatches open. To cockpit. Too close to the storm. We'll say an exterior door was ripped off. I'm just going overboard with this to really show how dangerous it is. Exterior door is ripped off. Plane depressure. Plane wasn't pressurized because they were using oxygen mask. But still chaotic. I know how to spell. I can spell. But still chaotic. Manages to get the pilot back at station. They survive. Land in the Gold Empire. A lavish, futuristic society. Bounty hunter blown away. The gold rush never ended here. The San Andreas. What is it? San Andreas? It's not St. Andrews. We'll just go with a gold meteorite. Fueled a new empire. Despite storm front isolationist yeah, the isolationism is absolutely important. Like I think it was Judas who mentioned it. Let me make sure to give credit. It was Judas. Yeah, the isolationist aspect is very important because, yes, if an actual gold asteroid crashed into Earth today and didn't damage anything or came close enough that we were able to mine it, there'd be so much gold that gold would become virtually worthless. Gold is valuable in its scarcity, at least on Earth. In the grand scheme of things, gold isn't that rare on a galactic scale. But yeah, the isolationist aspect is actually pretty important. But the eyes are empty. Everyone he meets judges him silently and ignores him. The buyer, or client, we'll go with client, not buyer, meets with client, angry from dealing with assholes all day, assumes they hired an outsider because they're too good for dirty work. Client is a young man who denies this. It's the normal reason why outside bounty hunters are used, but his situation is unique. Dash, the impact of the gold meteor could also have caused volcanic activity on the Pacific Ocean coast that fuels the localized weather vortex. See, it all comes together. Yes, absolutely. It wouldn't create perfect storefronts on the Pacific and Atlantic sides, but at least it goes towards justifying this world. So yeah, this is actually a decent concept. I'd need to do a lot more work to justify it with the harder science that I try to use, but I think it could be done. He is in love with a and in this case, with the storm fronts, there wouldn't necessarily be a way to get across the Icelandic land bridge, so there wouldn't be Native Americans here either. So it would be a truly unpopulated land that they colonized. With a, I'm just going to use current terminology for locations, and if we ever were to write this out in a story forge, I'd give it a more unique name. But, we'll call it Arizonian Princess. She's promised to the King of Seattle. Kings rule large regions and answer to the Californian Emperor. I butchered the hell out of that spelling, but I got it. Answer to the Californian Emperor. More like governors. These arranged marriages keep peace, but the client doesn't care. They're in love and want to move to London beyond the Empire. It's not like the Empire has reach outside of America at all, but it's at least worth a try. Yeah, it's gonna start getting a little bit rushed here. Go with stealth. Bounty hunter sneaks into Arizona Palace. The King of Seattle being interested in a princess, truly an alternate universe. It's true. Bounty hunter sneaks into the California Palace, meets with the princess. She's scared till he explains. Knocks out guards. Climbing involved. This would be a whole sequence. He's desperate to go. The King of Seattle would want her to dress like a young man. Just a little Seattle tease there. All right. We'll actually call this one Escape too. A maid raises the alarm, rushing out of the palace, fighting guards, desperate. Princess helps fight a little where she can. Yeah, she's pretty desperate. Her father begs her to stay. There might be war, or the emperor might punish Arizona for backing out of the marriage act. She can't help it. Kind of a classic aspect here, but I'm alright with classic stuff when it doesn't feel too cliche, and with everything else, this doesn't feel cliche at all. Can't help it. Yeah, if I expanded this into a full novel, there'd be a lot more of the politics aspect, there'd be character arcs, but because this is intended to be a short story, we are rushing through the plot points, but at least it's portraying this really fascinating world. Is she Helen of Troy ounces? Alright, we'll go with flight. Client and princess reunite. Make out and make bounty hunter uncomfortable. All three sneak into a cargo plane headed for Japan. Want to go the other way so it alleviates suspicion. With they have so much real estate that there's got to be crops as well. Crops and gold. Not registered passengers, so have to sneak air masks with them. Lovers take drugs to sleep on flight to conserve air. Bounty hunter breathes softly to extend supplies. Japan. Client has enough money and contacts, we'll just assume he has contacts, to get fake IDs, planning on traveling to random places for a while to hide, then settle down and have a family. Bounty hunter paid a lifetime worth of gold. Happy. Considers setting up an underground railroad to get people to and from the Gold Empire. Has the seed money, and he knows he has to go back to that wild place and conquer it. And master it, maybe? I'm not implying that he wants to be the new emperor, just completely understand it in every way. But I think that's what we have for the story. Unfortunately, I am getting a quick phone call right here real fast that I do have to answer, so I'm going to have to put you guys on BRB real quick, but I will be right back to recap the story. Alright, I apologize about that, but I am back, and I think we have the story mapped out pretty well for a short story. This is a fascinating world that's been created, especially by Dash and Jackknife in the chat. But we have so far is a bounty hunter who's working in London, doing odd jobs, barely scraping by, who finds out that there's a contract that he can take that will bring him to the Americas. And the Americas in this alternate reality have been cut off for millennia. There's no one who's ever settled there until, 100, 200 years before this, because of massive storm fronts that have cut off that world, and only the invention of airplanes have allowed travel there. When people finally did travel there, a version of the gold rush happened, and they discovered a giant gold meteorite in California. The people who stayed were able to build an empire there, cut off and isolated from the rest of the world. This bounty hunter decides to take this contract, manages to survive through the storm front, reach there, and it turns out that his client is a young lover who's trying to rescue his lover, I'm saying lover a lot, from an arranged marriage that she does not want to partake in. So the bounty hunter is contracted to rescue her from her Arizona palace, get her onto a cargo plane with the client, and get them to Japan, where they can build their new lives in the regular world together and away from the terrible politics of the Gold Empire. With the money that this bounty hunter acquires from this very lucrative contract, he considers creating an underground network to funnel people in and out of the Gold Empire, because now that he's seen it, he knows he has to go back and understand and master that world. And it does have a little bit to do with ego because of how thoroughly they dismissed him while he was there. Again, this is just a short story, but I think we've gotten a great glimpse into this world that we've created. I'm very much happy with it. I hope you are all happy with it. And this is another Chat Choose Your Own Adventure in the books. Again, sorry for that quick call. Like I said, there's a lot of personal life stuff going on right now that requires my attention, but I'm glad I was able to wrap it up fairly quickly. And I think this brings us to the end of the show, though. So thank you all so much for watching. We had some great activity, some great viewership, and some new people. And it's always great to see new people watching, whether or not that's on the YouTube side or the Kick side. Thank you to Judas, Dash, Dr. Rachel, Jack Knives, Weasel, Legatus, and everyone else who chatted or just lurked. I appreciate you all for being here. This week coming up, hopefully in a couple hours, Adam and I will be relaxing, and I really need to relax right now with some Jump Space. That'll be at 7:30 p.m. tonight on my channel. We're not doing the split screen anymore because his computer can't handle even just projecting his screen to me. So it's just going to be my perspective with him, his voice in Discord. And yeah, we're going to go for a couple hours with that tonight. This Thursday will be the Starfleet Academy Episode 8 review. We're getting so close to being done. And then, of course, this Saturday at 6 p.m., we're going to be doing Where No Man Wants to Go reviews, the panel show where we review the latest episode of Starfleet Academy. And, of course, I'll be right back here next week on Monday for the Write or Flight podcast. But that's all that I have for today. If you enjoyed this stream, please consider liking, sharing, and subscribing. The more support this channel gets, the closer we are to publishing the Endless Frontier novels. Until then, have a stellar day and stay curious.